Alright, welcome back everyone to the third Maplestory video in a row. And I know you guys have been waiting, the comments, the feedback, it's all been crazy. You guys have just wanted more Maplestory content, and like always, I'm here to provide. So it's just going to be a quick summary review video on the Blaster and comparing it to the Buccaneer, which I think subjectively and pretty objectively is the best class that there has been in Maplestory. So let's get into it. So I think for me to properly make my points and for you to kind of understand where I'm coming from, I think the best thing would be to start by first explaining what the skills of the old Buccaneer class looked like. Okay, so a lot of these basic skills you'd get in like your second or third job. So for example, doing damage would build up your energy. With energy, you'd be able to do two things. Well, first it would passively increase your damage. Secondly, there was an energy blast attack. And third, the one I used a lot, you could do like an energy drain, which would basically absorb HP from enemies. Now, that move didn't do that much damage, but the reason I used it a lot is because I was poor and didn't buy potions. So I would get my energy, absorb HP, and then convert my HP into MP, so that way I didn't have to constantly, buy any type of potions. So I touched on invincibility frames or iframes a lot. If you guys aren't sure what that means, it's basically during a certain action you have frames where you literally will not take damage. So typically in other like RPGs or MMOs it would be a roll or something like that. So in the second job, the Buccaneer actually got access to two moves that gave you invincibility frames, which was great. And then later on in your later jobs, you would get even more abilities that gave you invincibility frames. So you could basically just weave in your different abilities into each other, and you could have long periods of time where you were invincible, and this would be great for training and also for bossing. Now, if all that in itself isn't cool enough, you would get a transform ability in your third job, which would basically allow you to transform into like a blue glowing Super Saiyan. And in that form, you'd get, two more abilities that you can use. I tried to find a clip of it, but like because those abilities weren't that good, and because we're talking about like 7, 8 years ago, I couldn't find the clip. So you'll just have to imagine a shockwave attack, basically. And I don't remember what the other one was. So there was that. But literally, there's more after that because in your fourth job, you'd get a super transform skill, which would be like yellowish orange, which I'll show you, and that looked even cooler. And you had another set of abilities. So I mentioned earlier that later on in the job advancement, you got new skills that gave you invincibility frames. Well, this fourth job, in your transform state, you had new moves that gave you invincibility frames, and even regular moves that you don't need to be transformed to use that also had invincibility frames. So I don't remember exactly if Transform and Super Transform shared a cooldown, meaning if you used one of them, they both went on cooldown. But even if they did, it was still really cool to be able to transform and have like a period of time where you're doing more damage. You have, some cool moves that you can use. So earlier as well, I mentioned the energy drain passive, and that's always active. So it can be active at the same time as your transform is active, which is like a double buff. So it felt really cool to be always able to, have these cycles of like powering yourself up. So you're regular, you get your energy, you transform, then you go back, you use your energy, then at some point you'll get your transform again. So that was a really cool and interactive way to keep the whole experience of playing that job, pretty fun. Like, I'm not even gonna lie, it was really fun, and especially the fact that like I played it back then. There's like that nostalgia factor, and I guess the fact that I can't play that job anymore unless I, join like a private server or something. It just makes me think that I enjoyed it that much more, I guess. Alright, so the ways I would say it's similar, the blaster is similar to the Buccaneer is that a lot of your moves are close range, So you got like your punches, you got like a skill to dash into the enemies, you got this uppercut attack. The mobility is great though, as you can see, you can just kind of fly around like this without any issue, so that's one thing I'd say the blaster has over the old Buccaneer. But so you also have the shield, although you don't really build up to it. It just happens when you get hit, but it does help with, being a little bit tanky and giving you like a power stance move. But anyway, so over here you'll see that I have this thing that's full and this like ammo gauge, right? So I can use ammo by doing this, and when it's full like this, I can do this like mega punch move, like that, which is pretty cool, pretty good damage, and it gives you something to, build up to. Oh yeah, it's on cooldown now, so I can build it up. So that's one thing, that the similarity of building up is kind of there. The iframes are another thing, right? So you'll see here I can kind of charge up this little dash move and like dash through these enemies, and then I have a backwards one. So in that move you're invincible, and you can like combo it with something at the end, but it's not the same as the actual move being able to give you invincibility frames. But what is cool is, so this backwards dash, if you press it again, if you press it again when there's an enemy in front of you, you do this like double take and dash forward. So that is kind of cool. But yeah, I think those would be the similarities, just having like close range, having this like super punch move, having the blast shield, and kind of having these little dashes, although the one where you like slide back and slide forward kind of reminds me of the backstab elbow attack that the Buccaneers used to have. So to kind of conclude, I think Maplestory kind of has always been this button mashy kind of game, and there's nothing wrong with that. I've talked about it in my other videos why I think it's fine. But I think in that sort of chaos of button mashing, the Buccaneer class was a class that was, there was a little bit more to it. You had different phases, and you kind of had ways to do other things in between, all the button mashing. I think the blaster gives you a little bit to do, but it still comes down to being able to mash your buttons, very fast and all at once. So it is a bit unfortunate that I couldn't get the Buccaneer experience, but I'm gonna keep my eyes open and hope that eventually Nexon does make another class that will be a true inheritor, if not the next Buccaneer, because currently the current Buccaneer in the game is not really, it doesn't do justice to what the old class was. And if there's a class that I missed or don't know about that you guys know is like the Buccaneer, then please let me know in the comments below. So with that, I want to thank you all for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the rest of your day.